we're honored to have Amara's post-adoption director and adoptee, Angela Tucker, who's also the creator of the inclusive family support model that you'll learn about in the video. And along with her, we'll hear from author and adoptive parent Lori Holden, foster and adoptive parent and advocate Katie Byron, and Kara Anderson, who is Amara's family support specialist for this program. So in just a minute, I will turn it over to Angela and let her get started, but I wanted to go through a couple of logistical pieces before we do. So the event will be recorded so that we can share with others who aren't able to join us today, and we will make sure to share the recording out with all of you as well. And we'll have a Q&A at the end of the program. So we do ask that you hold your questions until the end, and that when we do the Q&A, that you put your questions in the Q&A field at the bar on the bottom of your screen instead of in the chat. And we do encourage people to continue to share about who you are and why you're here in the chat, and we'll be sharing some links in the chat as well, but we'd love to just contain those Q&A questions to make them easy to manage and make sure that they are not missed. Now I will turn it over to Angela and get us started.
Thank you. So I'm so excited today to share this inaugural animation video. That's pretty much why we're here today. And so like Carrie said, we'll have the latter portion of the half hour to answer your questions. So you can put them in the Q&A box and we'll get to them. But it's really fun already to see the mix of people here today. So we have I've seen birth parents, there's adoptees, there's adoptive parents, foster parents, volunteers, donors, community members, some state representatives. It's a huge mix. People from Cherish. I'm so excited. Thank you for coming. And please follow Amara on social media to find out more about the Speaking of Change series, which will feature some of Amara's other programs. Our Family Connections program, our kinship program, our family time program, all the things that Amara is doing right now, this series will elaborate on. So stay tuned so you can learn more about all that we're doing. But today we're going to focus on the post-adoption program, which came into existence in 2016. I was hired because many adoptive parents were saying to Amara supported us so well through the adoption journey, which was up and down. But then once we adopted, all the supports went away. And it was like, where do we go? Where do we turn to? And so that's why the post-adoption program came into an inception. As an adoptee, I know firsthand that adoption is a lifelong journey. It doesn't end. I will never not be an adoptee. And so support needs to reflect that. So that is where our program is lifelong, supports families throughout the journey. And the key emphasis today and throughout the post-adoption work and much of Amara's work is around openness. And this is a term that is complicated. And I, along with Jaeron Kim, a professor at the University of Washington, who is also an adoptee, wrote a theoretical model, a way that we wanted to work with adoptive families to promote openness, because we know that openness is healthiest for adoptees. But I don't think everybody wants to read a really dense academic publication about this model, but I do understand that lots of folks are curious about this concept. And so this video that we're going to premiere today is our attempt at simplifying this complex concept. So the first thing I want to do is to screen the video, to share it with everybody so that you can see what we've been pouring our work into. And then I would love for Lori, Katie, and Kara to explain more about why they wanted to be part of this project in the first place. So let's go ahead and share the video. Just like a map gets you from where you are to where you want to be, this grid can help you plan your adoptive parenting journey. Every adoptive family fits somewhere within the inclusive family support grid, even yours. Let us introduce you to it. In a closed adoption, there is no contact with birth family, and there can be a sense of relief that the child now has a forever family and a fresh start. A mediated adoption is where there is contact with birth family, but the spirit is more of obligation than of a relationship. Why? Well, the adoptive parents may have some underlying emotions like fear or insecurity, which is understandable. In the spirit of openness, contact with birth family may not be possible or safe. However, the adoptive family still engages in conversations about adoption regularly and with ease.
Daddy, I'm really missing my birth dad.
Oh, bud, I'm so sorry. I know this is really hard on you. Hey, do you remember what his favorite food was when you were together?
I remember he liked chocolate chip cookies, just like I do. Daddy, what do you remember about him?
I remember when you would see him, he was always singing. You both are so musical. You are so good at singing. I wish he could have heard you sing.
An inclusive adoption is where families have both contact and a heartfelt relationship. The child has access to all the important people in their life.
When did she first begin playing soccer?
We gave her a soccer ball for her second birthday, and it was immediately clear she was a natural.
So look within and identify your fears, your dreams, and maybe even your insecurities. These are all very normal feelings to have. Where is your family now on the grid? Where does your child need you to be? We know the lifelong journey of adoption is complex and unique. We at Amara are here to help you on your path. If the video was a little blurry for you, or you missed something because it was kind of quick, you can find the video on Amara's website at amarafamily.org, and we'll put the direct page where you can find it in the chat, so you can watch it again on your computer and you might be able to see it clearer and all of that. But as an adoptee who grew up in a closed adoption, I didn't have access to knowing a lot of pieces about my origin story. And that really hindered me in some ways. And so this model is what I've developed off of the work of Lori, who we'll share in a minute. But it is my firm belief that every single adoptive family fits somewhere on that grid, in the closed, in the mediated, the spirit of openness, or the inclusive quadrant. And so the work is to figure out how to move into a spirit of openness or inclusive. And that's really what we want to focus on today. We hope that families see themselves somewhere in that animation and that it sparks conversation. Again, please put your questions in the Q&A so that we can answer them after we get through a couple introductions. So I want to start with Lori. Lori, you conceived of this kind of framework first, and I took it and ran with it a little bit more. Tell me more about why you did this and why you're part of now this project.
Yeah, I'm here because even though we're no longer in the closed adoption era and it's way behind us, there are still elements of it that we have picked up by osmosis and that permeate our adoption practices. And by that, I mean by adoptive parents like me. And the main one that I'm talking about is this either or mindset that we grow up thinking of in adoption. And this is it's very insidious. It can be subconscious, and it makes it so that there's only one legitimate set of parents. And so when somebody asks, who's his real mom? Or does she know who her real dad is? That can be triggering for people, because anytime the other parents are legitimized, it takes away from my part of the pie. So it can wreak havoc on adoptive families. It can make children, the children in adoption have split loyalties. And they, if they even wonder about their birth parents, is that taking away from their adoptive parents? And it's also hard on adoptive parents. And I'm one of them. And because it makes us feel insecure, makes us feel fearful that we're not the only, if we haven't really recognized that and come to terms with that and dealt with that in an above board way. So there's such a simple shift that can be made here, and that's to this both and heart set. And once adoptive families can grasp that, there's such an easy way for everybody in the family, and including birth parents.
So brilliant. A quick reminder, I see a question in the chat from Victoria. Victoria, please put that in the Q&A part so that I can come back to it later. Katie, tell me about you and why you wanted to be part of this team and working on this project.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, Angela. My name's Katie Byron, and we came to Amara to adopt 14, almost 15 years ago. And we were one of those families Angela talks about. We were well prepared for adoption, but I would say we were not prepared to raise an adoptee. And then we came, and our daughter came to live with us. And I thought I understood open adoption. I had poured over all the resources I could find. At that time, one of the main ones was a magazine called Adoptive Families. And I thought I understood open adoption. I thought I understood. But now looking at that grid, what I really understood how to do was mediated. And I didn't have a spirit of openness. And then once I met my daughter's family, met her mom, met her siblings, and realized that my daughter had two families. She has two families that love her, and she's better when her two families are able to support her. And some of those, sometimes it's not always safe, or it's not always possible to have physical connection or even a connection through letters and pictures, but building those connections through the spirit of openness for my daughter was essential. And it was really hard. It was hard to challenge my beliefs. Katie of 15 years ago, it was very important for me to be mom and her to be her first name. And as I grew, as I began to understand, as I learned more about the adoptee experience by listening to adoptees, I realized that my daughter holds having two moms every day of her life. And so I needed to do the work I needed to do to hold that alongside her. And it was hard. It was challenging. It took a lot of learning. It's a lot of resources, trying to change my mindset, but really looking at my daughter and how she flourishes when everyone's in her life, or we're keeping a spirit of openness. And so sometimes I feel really guilty, Angela, about the adoptive parent I was back at the beginning of this journey. But then I really remember this quote from Maya Angelou, which is one of my favorites, which is, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. And so Katie of 15 years didn't know better. She was trying. And then once I knew better, it was up to me to do the work to do better.
I love it.
So I'm here today to help other adoptive parents on that journey, because there's not a one size fits all or a how-to manual. It's nuanced and complex and unique.
And Kara, you are on staff working with adoptive parents primarily every day, talking about openness. How does this come into that? And tell me more about what this means to you, this grid.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Lori and Katie demonstrated perfectly kind of the beginning stages of why we believe this model is important. And with the work that I do, it's extremely important for me to embrace and meet families where they're at as they venture into the complex and unique lifelong journey of adoption. Helping families feel seen and heard and validated. Every story is unique. And is critical when supporting change. Achieving a true, authentic spirit of openness requires adoptive parents to do some deep inner work. Lori mentioned this, Katie also mentioned this in their talk before. What we do know to be true is that through achieving a spirit of openness in your family, that adoptees have the opportunity to increase their positive sense of adoptee identity. They also have an opportunity to decrease their sense of abandonment and to increase their attachment to their adoptive parents.
Mm. Wise words of wisdom. This event is purposefully kind of short and tight, which means that we're not going to get to be able to go super deep, but we would love to still hear your questions and have them written out, because it may tell us that there's a need for a longer community conversation about this. So please put them in there, even if we don't have time to get to them. I want to ask one more question of each of you and then turn to the Q&A for the final kind of 10 minutes. So this will be real brief. But what is each of your beliefs about where people should be on this grid? We created this model with adoptive parents at the forefront because I believe that they are in control in driving the change. And it's not because birth parents don't play a role or the adoptees don't play a role. Of course, everyone is integral to this, but the adoptive parents are the ones with the most power in the relationship, in the dynamics. Where do you see families? Where should they be, if anything, on this grid?
I'll take this one. I think that, well, I want to make it clear that this isn't a sequential model. It's not like you start, wherever you start, then you go to the next box, because we're measuring two different things. On the east-west axis, we're measuring contact, and on the north-south, we're measuring your sense of openness and how easy it is for you to talk about things and how easy it is for your child to bring things up with you. So the degree of contact that you have with your child's other family isn't all fully under your control. As Katie mentioned, there's lots of reasons why birth family may not be available or safe in some situations. So what's really important on this grid is the elevation. So box 4 is not better than box 3, or the spirit and the openness grids, the inclusive family. Those are the best. Those are the places where the adoptee is going to have the best chance of integrating all their parts.
Great. Yeah. I mean, it's so important that you hit on that topic of just, and I think we'll move to questions pretty soon. I might not get both of you, Katie and Kara, but I often hear people thinking that you can only have an open adoption if you have physical contact, if the kid has physical contact with their biological parents. But this grid is saying no, that actually a spirit of openness means biological parents could be deceased, they could be on another continent, they could be truly unsafe and therefore not coming over to your house for dinner. But the spirit of openness means that in your home, you are speaking with ease about the child's biological parents. I want to move to, oh, thank you. I think I asked that we see the grid as we're talking a little bit so that folks can reference it, because like Lori said, it's not a static thing. It ebbs and flows. People come into one box and out of another, and there's gradations within the boxes itself of how much you've disclosed or how much contact you have. But let me ask a question from the audience. Let's see. I think this is a good one for either Katie or Lori. Can you please talk about the steps I can take as an adoptive mom to form a relationship with the birth families of a closed adoption? It is closed not by our choice.
I'll take this one, Angela. So it depends. If it's closed not by your choice, but you don't know where the parents are, you don't have any kind of way of connecting with them, or perhaps they are choosing not to engage at this point, and that's not to fault anyone. Sometimes, particularly when they're struggling, it's embarrassing and they don't want to engage. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to always keep that door open. So if you have committed to letters and pictures, you're still sending letters and pictures, even if they're going to a PO box and they're just sitting there, or even if they're getting returned. And what you're doing is just continuing. I like to think of it like a bridge. What you want is to keep continually building this bridge. So when the other person is ready, the bridge is already built to here, because someone who's struggling, someone who's dealing with trauma, if they have to go this far, that's a big step. But if they only have to reach out a tiny bit, it's a lot closer. And so you're keeping the door open. Perhaps there's a safety concern that absolutely precludes connection right now. You keep the door open in your mind and in your heart that if that safety concern is resolved, you will connect with this person, that this will not define this person for the rest of their life. And so it's really just a mindset of continuing to reach out, building that bridge, and being open to the belief that people can change, and that it's just really staying open. And then also really working hard on the spirit of openness within your home. Are you talking to your child? Maybe you know nothing, but you can still say, wow, you're really good at sports. I wonder which your other parents were really good at sports, like, or you're a math genius. I wonder if your dad did really well at school. It's not questions you have answers to, but it's letting that child know that you embrace that part of them also.
Absolutely. And let's go a little bit deeper, because there's another question about safety. And Kara, I wonder if you can speak to this, because we often hear from adoptive parents trying to figure out, is this a true safety risk or not? The fact that my kid's biological parents are homeless, should that preclude me from having a direct dialogue or not? You know, how do we define safety?
That's a great point. I often have this conversation with a lot of my families about safety risks, accurate, real safety risks based on information we know, and perceived safety based on our own internal biases about, let's, for example, say homelessness or a drug and alcohol issue or a mental health concern. There's a clear distinction between what we perceive as safety, between what we actually have evidence for when regarding a safe situation that we would never put our kids in, and that we would never advocate for you to put your kids in. And to kind of getting back to Katie's point a little bit, when we're talking about creating space for having these types of conversations, creating a true and authentic way for your kid to come to you, sometimes you need to present issues like drugs and alcohol to a 8-year-old. You're going to have to talk about homelessness if that's what is presenting in your larger family situation with a birth parent. Then we talk about it to a 5-year-old. We can't shy away from these, what we consider big issues that we don't think that kids can handle, because this is their life. This is their story. We have to remember that we're putting them first, and then their life and their story at the center.
Absolutely. It's actually really helpful for me as an adoptee to have had it would have been really helpful to have a bigger, clearer picture of my birth mother's struggles, because it would have helped me understand why an adoption was necessary in the first place. So I think sometimes adoptive parents feel like shielding or protecting their child from something that might be hard or difficult, when in reality, that's the very information that we need to help make sense of ourselves and our identity. And it is hard. Adoption is hard. Being adopted is hard. And the answer to that, though, is having a safe place like your mom, adoptive mom, your dad, and a therapist to be able to work through those difficulties, not to be shielded and not know them. Lori, do you have anything else to add to that piece?
I can add that one of the strategies that parents can use when they're finding that discernment that Kara was talking about is to take away the adoption charge and reframe the situation in your mind as if it were somebody else important to your family. Maybe a sister or a brother-in-law or a mother-in-law or somebody else in the family. And if they are experiencing something like this, maybe they smoke or some of the challenges that Kara was talking about, how would you handle it with them? So that allows you to do the inner work to say, well, I would never let this around them, but this might be okay if we did this. And so when you take away the adoption piece of it, then how do you handle it?
We are coming up on the end. Like we said, this was just like barely scratching the surface. We'd love to have deeper conversations. And I see questions in here about incorporating this model into the Alliance caregiver training, which would be absolutely helpful for continuity and also would be helpful for foster parents who may want to start talking about openness during the creation of the open adoption agreement. I see questions about policy and how we can influence how practices and policies should be guided by perhaps this. We would love to have that conversation. And I think one of the key things for me is making sure people with the lived experiences are at the table. And that's why this group is so powerful. I think we have so many personal experiences that we can bring to this, as well as decades between us of professional experience. And so all of these questions I'm going to save so that we do follow up. I would recommend that after we hang up, you'll get an email with a survey. If you fill out that survey and include your question, we'll email you back about the next steps after this with regards to the model. I also wanted to let adoptive parents know about our STAR Adoptive Parent Group, which we're running right now. It's a 7-week curriculum, and it's a great place to meet other adoptive parents who are struggling with trying to figure out this openness stuff. I'm grateful to the Best Starts for Kids grant, which is allowing all of this to happen. So I need to give them a shout out. But please do check out our website and check out that STAR parent group. I saw one question about an adult adoptee group, which we don't have at Amara, but shameless plug, I have on my side hustle. So find me at angelatucker.com and I can hook you up with lots of adult adoptees. I want to hand it back to Amy and Carrie, who will wrap us up.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you all. All of you, Angela, Kara, Katie, and Lori, it's been wonderful to hear from all of you. And I think, as Angela acknowledged, there are so many more questions than we were able to get to. And I think there's definitely a thirst for more on this. And we're excited to collect the questions that continue to come in the email that will go out and think about how we can continue this conversation. So, and I also want to thank everyone who has joined us, all the attendees, for your thoughtful questions and engagement and sharing a little bit about what your connection is to this work and why you're here. So I am here to close us out. I don't want to take up much of your time. There will be links shared in the chat to our website, so you can go and learn more about our work in general, also to the Inclusive Family Support Model page, which is brand new and now includes the video that you saw earlier. We also have a campaign going on this month. For those of you who may have ever been to any of our events, we have an annual luncheon that obviously is not happening, but we have a brand new family video that we'll be sharing the link to in our chat as well, if any of you would like to go there and support this work. And then we will be sending you an email and following up, and we hope you'll also keep your eye out for future opportunities to attend further events in this series, as well as a potential carryover to this specific topic and conversation. So thank you all so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.